Hello. You might know me from teaching you how to play indie songs on guitar or something, but I think I'm going to start doing monthly book stuff. I'm definitely still going to keep doing music stuff. I need to get back on the horse and start doing that again, but I have plans to. But I don't know. I really like watching these videos. I watch a lot of them. I'm a big reader. I thought it would be kind of cool to have, I don't know, like almost a video journal type thing on a monthly basis of the stuff I'm reading. Watch it or don't, that is your prerogative. Not going to be any editing or anything. These are going to be real casual. But, anywho, I read 5 books in August. I only have hard copies of 2 of them, but I'll give you a picture. The first book I read was The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis, which is a like auto-fictional retelling of his senior year of high school. Like the main character is Bret Easton Ellis, but it's a fictional Bret Easton Ellis. Although a lot of the events, like the name of the high school is the high school that he went to. And a new student joins their senior class and sort of infiltrates Bret's like cliquey in group. Basically, he's dating like the second hottest girl in school, and then the hottest girl in school is dating the quarterback, and they're all friends. It's very like California, and it is set in California. But then there's this new kid that Bret simultaneously hates and also wants to have sex with. The book is, I guess I'll talk about that now. A main portion of the book is Bret's experience as a closeted gay high school kid, and he has this girlfriend, but he explains to you, you're in his head, that he's with her for like the social status that she provides for him, and like he sees himself as playing a role. But the book is very gay. There's lots of descriptions of high school boys' bodies, and it's a very horny book. But also, this new kid infiltrates their friend group. Simultaneously, a serial killer is kind of on the loose in California, like right near them, and killing people in their age group. And it's a serial killer who is doing like creatively violent, demented shit with bodies and mutilating people, and it's very, very graphic, very gross. It's definitely described thoroughly. So if that's gonna bug you, don't read this. I really really liked this book. I think it might be my favorite book that I read this month. It's it's 600 pages long, so it's a little bit on the longer side. You spend so much time inside Bret's head as he is increasingly paranoid, increasingly like looking over his shoulder at all times, and you really feel that as a reader. This book made me feel very anxious. It made me feel um, like I wanted to close my blinds and make sure my doors were locked. Um, I loved how it didn't try to hold the reader's hand. Really, there's lots. It's not just like a clear horror story or like a straight up thriller. Like it is those things. It's also, I don't know. It's definitely in like that dark academia vein, sort of. Like the school is very central to the plot and like to the setting of the novel, but there's so many like red herrings and things that are just given to you offhand, or almost like given to you and then thrown away and might come back later, might not. It feels true to life, which is, I think, aided by the fact that it's being told by Bret Easton Ellis. Like your narrator is current day Bret Easton Ellis. He's in his mid 50s. He talks about like, oh yeah, this is when I was writing Less Than Zero, and like this is when I wrote American Psycho. Like it's being told to you like a memoir, and I think it adds to helping it not feel like a fictional story or feel like a book, even though it obviously is. Just all these, you have to decide a lot of things for yourself. It almost feels like a real life unsolved true crime thing where you have a lot of answers and you're pretty sure about what happened, but some things really don't make sense and you're not sure of other things, and you can form theories that feel pretty good and pretty airtight, but you can never be sure. That's what reading this book felt like to me. It was also just like wickedly creative and dark and gross and cool. I liked it. I had a great time reading it. Second book I read, which I have a copy of, is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I read this for a queer book club in town because I'd always heard of James Baldwin and never read anything by him. So I read this. This is the story of a young American man who's basically, he's not living in Paris, but he is kind of. It's one of those expat novels where he's just on like a months long trip. Like apparently these people don't have jobs or anything, in sort of that Hemingway style. But basically he is in Paris. He has proposed to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend is now taking a weeks long trip through Spain to think things over. And while he's in Paris waiting for her to get back and waiting for her answer, he falls in love with a male bartender, which is Giovanni. And while she's gone, actually I think she's gone several months now that I think about it, he starts living with Giovanni because he's flat broke. And they fall in love and they have basically an affair while she's gone. And it's just about the relationship between these two men and what's going on in the narrator's head as he is falling in love with Giovanni, being in denial that he's falling. It's another like the Shards, also not like the Shards at all, but like the Shards where it is it's narrated to you by somebody who's already been through the events. Like on the first page, he's like, blah, it's this day, and all the events of the book have already happened. And he's just retelling things to you. So there's actually very little plot. I think there's like 2 or 3 plot events in the whole book. It's a short book too. It's not very long. But you're inside his head as he's going through all these regrets and these things about his life. And there's so much about his like unrecognized shame and guilt and like things that happen in his life that could give him the happiness he's looking for that he won't let himself have for various reasons, internal and external. It's sad. It's a very, very depressing book in a lot of ways, but really beautifully written, really densely written, flowery passages in a way. I don't usually like things like that very much, but it was done in a way that I enjoyed a lot in this book. I thought it was really pretty, really sad. Don't have too much to say else about it, but very good, very well done. The third book I read was a tiny little baby book. It was called The Pink Institution by Celia Saterstrom. I read it in one sitting, which it's not as impressive as it sounds. It's like a hybrid prose and poetry novel, and it follows the multi-generational story of a family in the South, absolutely in the vein of like Southern Gothic if you're into that kind of thing, but it's mostly following the abuses that are suffered by the women in this family, which are fucking horrific to read about. Absolutely one of those like dark Southern Gothic, if you're, like The Color Purple, things like that. Like the worst violence and sexual violence you could think of, committed by family members, all that good. Another very bleak in a different way, but extremely bleak book. The main thing that jumps out about this book is the form. Like I said, it's hybrid prose and poetry. I actually could not stand that. Unfortunately, I really didn't like it. I thought it was well done. I just think it's really not for me. The sections where it jumps to poetry were abstract in a way that was very, I guess, like beautiful to read, but it just continually pulled me out of the narrative, and I felt like I really wanted to sink into the characters and the plot, and that was just not an option. I just don't think it's the kind of thing I like, which is, it's very experimental, obviously. And there's not like it's not like it's all right, here's a prose section and now we're going into a poetry section. There are sections that feel like that, but then there's sections that live in kind of an in-between place. And I don't know, I enjoyed the story. I could tell it was very well done. I just don't think it's my I don't think it's my type of a thing. But if you're into Southern Gothic, books about trauma and horrible things happening, books about women, give it a try. You can read it in like an hour and a half or something. It's definitely worth your time. The fourth book I read was The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz, which is another sort of family saga, but in a very different way. It's almost in like the Latin American magical realism kind of school, and it definitely has a little bit of magical realism to it. It tells the story of Oscar de Leon, not Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde is actually kind of a cruel nickname that he picks up later in life, but it's about his struggles growing up. He's very overweight. I think the back of the book describes him as disastrously overweight, which kind of tells you a little bit about the tone of this book. But he's also like a gigantic nerd. Like he's into tabletop gaming and just basically any nerdy thing you could possibly think of. He's really into it. And he has what amounts to basically like an overgrown love bone. Like he falls in love hard and often, and just like the kind of like teenager where he'll see a pretty girl working at the movie theater and he's like, I'm in love with her, we're gonna get married, I have our whole life planned out. And he just does that like twice a week. And obviously he doesn't have very much luck with the ladies because of the way he is. And by not very much, I mean like actually almost none, which is kind of like a huge heartbreaker to him. And it affects the way that he sees himself and the way that he acts. But also potentially affecting this is his familial curse called the Fuku, which is inherited from his ancestors, just like a curse of bad luck that will haunt him his whole life, that his whole family's had, which is another really interesting through line in this book. The sort of first and third parts of the book, we're following Oscar. In the middle portion of the book, it's the story of different ancestors of all, like if we follow the story of his mother and the story of his mother's father, who Oscar has never met, who, you know, earned them the curse in the first place. And it details like how that happened and why. And it's a very like, they very much believe in the curse, but it's kind of one of those magical realism things where like, do you really believe, is he cursed or is it, anyway, read the book. It's also told through the lens of the Trujillo regime in the Dominican Republic, which I did not know anything about before reading this. And there's all these like historical footnotes detailing things about this dictatorship in the Dominican Republic and how it colors these characters' lives and the lives of this family, and the effect that it's had on the Dominican Republic, the effect it's had on Dominican like diaspora in the United States and like New York and New Jersey specifically, where these characters live. Really cool. Really, I was going to say beautifully written, but that's not true, which is something I guess I do need to get into, which is the narrative voice. It is beautifully written. I don't want to insult the book, but it's narrated, a very strange narrative choice. You don't get an omniscient like third person narrator. It's not narrated by Oscar. It's narrated by sort of like a family friend named Junior. He was roommates with Oscar in college. He also dated Oscar's sister on and off for a while. And he narrates these things to you in a very like, I forget what this, there's a Spanish word for it, but he's basically like what amounts to a playboy. He's like girl crazy, very cool, you know, Dominican guy. And the voice definitely reflects that. And when I first started it, I absolutely hated it and bounced off it and thought that I would not be able to finish this book. But it grew on me. I got used to it. It's interesting though, because he is like, he's more omniscient than he should be. You're getting things that he was not present for and would have no way of knowing. Like, you're getting specific dialogue that he's relaying to you. And when you learn who is narrating to you, you're like, how did you know any of this? And there's sometimes it'll be like half explained, like, oh, we have Oscar's journals. But a lot of the time, it's part of the magical realism thing of like, how are we getting this information? How much of this information is true? And if it is true, like, I don't know, it feels very mystical, feels very magical, and it also is true for the historical footnotes, which are footnotes about history and historical figures from the Dominican Republic, but they're told in his voice, so they're very casual and very like, I don't know, this book says the N word like once a page, it curses constantly. It's got its own thing going on for sure, voice wise. Very polarizing, I think, but I hated it, and then I grew to understand that it's part of the charm of it. It's part of. By the end of it, I was glad that the story of these people was told to me in this voice. And it's one of the things that I remember most about the book. So overall, I think it's a good thing. That's a lot of rambling. I love this book. I think it was really good. I think at times it was tough to read. Like, I didn't, I guess, anticipate it being difficult. Maybe don't judge a book by its cover, but this cover feels like kind of like drugstore book. Like, I know it won the Pulitzer or whatever, but it just doesn't. Maybe this is all me, but the cover just doesn't make you think it would be a difficult book. But at times I thought it was pretty tough. There's a lot of like timeline jumping and nonlinear storytelling happening. Yeah. Really good book. The last book I read this month was Ghost Story by Jim Butcher. It's book, bad time to be catching you guys up. It's book 13 of the Dresden Files. I won't spend too long on this. If you don't know what the Dresden Files are, it's basically like a noir series about a wizard who lives in Chicago and he solves magical crimes. It's they're my palate cleanser books, and they're pretty good. Usually, I did not like this one. This one I thought was, I'm not gonna give you the summary of book 13 of a series. I just thought it was a little gimmicky. Yeah, it wasn't what I was looking for. Book 12, which you know nothing about because we're starting here on book 13, was like, I don't know, I guess like the Avengers Endgame of the, I haven't seen that movie, but just a big happening book with a lot of explosions and a lot of people in the mix. And then this is kind of like the reset recovery book. I just didn't really like the way it was done. The writing was fine and everything. It's, you know, it's the same series that I like and I'm chill with, but it felt very gimmicky. All right, if you don't want to know spoilers for Dresden Files, skip ahead like 30 seconds. If you don't care, stay. He dies in book 12. And then this book, he's a ghost. And then by the end of this book, he's like not a ghost anymore. He's just like Casper the Ghost for the whole book. And I didn't give a shit about it, man. But it's okay. I'm gonna read book 14. Don't worry. Yeah, those are the books I read in August. Thanks for listening. See ya.